Ernest Hemingway once said that every man has two deaths, when he is buried in the ground and the last time someone says his name. Even the rapper Macklemore says, "I heard you die twice, once when they bury you in the grave, and the second time is the last time that somebody mentions your name." This concept has been written about, thought about, spoken about for decades, centuries even, going back to the time of ancient Egypt, allegedly. There is one that does stick out to me. In one of the many, many novels in Terry Pratchett's Discworld series, we're introduced to a communication system called the clacks.
It stored the wind to power its mechanisms. It bent rather than broke. It acted more like a tree than a fortress. You could build most of it on the ground and raise it into place in an hour. It was a thing of grace and beauty, and it could send messages up to 4 times faster than the old towers thanks to the new shutter system and the coloured lights.
Very complex messages could be coded and sent long distances to other towers in the network across the disk at the speed of light. In a world where the only form of instant communication is done by highly trained wizards, and any normal means of sending messages takes weeks to travel the distance, these towers are the first telecommunications network in the series, something that exists in the real world. It's email, it's wizard email. While trying to repair the shutter array of a new clacks tower, John Deerhart, the son of the inventor of the clacks, was killed. Other operators in the clacks network who knew him and respected him started including New John Deerhart, a short, simple message made up of telegraph operator shorthand in the overhead of their messages. The overhead is part of a message reserved for information used by the system operators, separate to customers' usually coded messages. Each letter in this short message stands for a separate instruction. G means pass it on to the next tower. N means don't log it, don't write it in the records. U, turn it around and send it back up the message line. The clacks operators collectively decide to keep John's name traveling forever through the network because a man is not dead while his name is still spoken. Do you think we'll ever have heirloom email addresses? Family usernames passed down across the years. Did you know that according to Steam's end-user license agreement, all Steam accounts are considered non-transferable upon the death of the account holder? You can inherit someone's house, someone's car, someone's book collection. You cannot inherit a Steam library. This effectively makes the number of active accounts belonging to dead people 0. These platforms are not designed to handle death. But I have people in my Steam's friends list who I only met on a Counter-Strike 1.6 server 13 years ago, and they've not logged in for 10 plus years. Obviously, Steam isn't going to track the status of its users' lives, but if you open up your Steam account right now and scroll to your friends list, how long ago did some of these people log in? What's going to happen to those accounts 20 years down the line, when all that is left of them are accounts that are nothing but ghosts of people long passed on, haunting ancient websites, their profiles costing pennies on the dollar to run for years? One of the core pieces of online wisdom from ye olden days of the internet, so the 90s, is that the internet never forgets. Everything posted online remains there forever. That's not 100% true. There are exceptions to every rule. Link rot makes fools of us all. And with the rise of more modern government policies such as the EU's right to be forgotten, things will fall out of wider circulation. But what goes online stays online has been a useful shorthand. Your digital footprint is eternal. Don't post anything that you wouldn't want read out at your funeral. So what happens to your data when you die? It's inevitable. People keep dying, and their data never goes away in full, and eventually the internet will contain more content from dead people than living ones. And it's hard, impossibly hard, to total up the dead accurately. We can make best guesses. It's estimated that 109 billion people have lived and died over the course of humanity's history. Now that's an impossibly large number to wrap your head around. That's the entire population of the Earth multiplied by 14. 160,000 people die every day. That's 61 million people a year. It's 2 people every second. And for the vast majority of human history, the people who could afford to leave behind memoirs and posthumous works were part of a tiny exclusive group. Only they could do it because writing down your life took money, it took time, it took the ability to even get access to the materials to do so. And now, in the modern internet age, we all have smartphones, we all carry cameras in our pocket. and we document our lives online with them at great scale. So why am I, the weird internet history guy, talking about this? It's probably a question you should ask at this point. I'm not imminently facing my own mortality, I think. I'm 33. Hopefully this is a normal thing to occasionally think about as you rapidly close in on middle age, but this is a topic that keeps confronting me. More than once when I'm browsing a decade-old post on Something Awful for more videos, I stumble across old forum threads where people just die. Their profiles are still there. More often than not, just a monument to their own mistakes. One of the earlier videos on this channel was about the KFC 11 herbs and spices fire log, maybe possibly killing a guy. Something Awful user Dignity Van Houten buys one of these promotional fire logs and claims to have lit it on fire indoors in their house on their charcoal grill. Thanks for the deal. Unfortunately, I don't have a fireplace, so I'll have to burn it on my charcoal grill. I'll update the thread later if it's too fragrant for my small apartment, 500 square feet. They make 2 more posts on the forum. One of which was stating that they were in hospital and only survived because their neighbor in the apartment downstairs heard the thud of them falling over, and the other post is just the word gym. They have never posted again. Goons, who are the members of Something Awful, spend a few pages laughing in disbelief before moving on, sending a hearty get well and lol from the 1,000-page thread. But Dignity Van Houten's account is still up. Yeah, it's an incredibly funny way to die and maybe document your own death. Maybe, I don't know if they actually died, but it is funny to think that they did, and you too can go and reread that, and all of their other posts on the forum, potentially forever. There are a lot of these stories. One time around 2008, the Something Awful subforum called Fuck You and Die, or FIAD, held a contest to quietly vandalize a Wikipedia page and see whose vandalism could go the longest without being caught. Some of the vandalism stuff was legit, some of it might have just been pretending you did it because you weren't supposed to reveal what you vandalized in the thread, and a lot of the specifics are very murky. This is nearly 20 years ago now. One member tried to upload Barnacle Jim's face to the Wikipedia page for Fragile X syndrome, and another kept making a page about pod tats, temporary tattoos that you put on your iPod. One user, known as Ty Pepper, who posted on both the Something Awful forums and Wikipedia, became obsessed with stopping the vandalism. At some point during this edit war, he got banned from Wikipedia for having sock puppet accounts that he used to combat the vandalism, and if I've dug up the story in full, he got permabanned from Something Awful because he kept trying to edit allegations of tax evasion onto the founder of Something Awful's Wikipedia page. A month or two later after this, he tragically takes his own life. And that whole story, the original and all the retellings, as varied and potentially inaccurate as they are, I'm not even sure if that story is 100% correct, but it's still there, existing like a yellowed stain that refuses to come out of an old, well-worn t-shirt. I would be remiss if I covered this topic without talking about the user Jose. He deserves his own video one day, but in short, Jose was a British goon who was traveling to Miami for a wedding shortly before Hurricane Irma was about to hit Florida. That's genuinely incredibly bad timing, landing right as one of the biggest storms of the year was about to rip through the state. He decided he'd rather ride out the storm rather than fleeing like a sensible person, and aside from what I assume to be his wedding suit and some other sundries, all he had to his name was some rum and his trusty Nintendo Switch. I brought my Nintendo Switch with me, so if it hits, I hope we don't lose power so I can just play Mario Kart or Hurricane. He actually skipped the opportunity to take a flight straight back out to safety and instead decided to stay and swipe on Tinder, trying to get what he called hurricane matches before eventually deciding to party with some girls that said they had Xanax. We then get dozens of pages of people reacting as he occasionally updates us on the status of his hotel stay, the highlight being his hotel balcony slowly flooding with so much water that the sliding glass door cracks. Jose survives, and the thread was so good that shortly after he was asked to be a mod of the general bullshit subforum and remained that way for quite a while. Death eventually claims us all though, and he passed away in 2024 and is remembered by dozens of goons as a beloved figure. What's important here is that every single one of the accounts I've just mentioned, all of the stories, the good and the bad, are left like massive and immortal memorials to these people. And they're not retellings either. Until these servers shut down, you can go and read these threads exactly as they happened, right from the source, And this is happening at a scale that's never been doable in human history. Some of these websites are so massive that you have to ask the question, what do we owe the data of a dead person? In April of 2020, at the height of the pandemic, Instagram began to test and roll out a memorializing feature, allowing you to remember users who had died. You could fill out a form and get a deceased person's Instagram profile deactivated or memorialized. The word remembering appears next to the deceased person's name on their profile, nothing else can ever be uploaded, and all existing posts and videos remain visible to the original audience they were shared with. Will Meta keep this running forever? What happens when they inevitably succumb to entropy and stop functioning as a company? Storage has historically been so cheap for these larger websites that it's been easier just to keep it there, resulting in scenarios where these Instagram memorials are a fraction of a percent at Meta's bottom line. And that's now potentially changing. The streaming site Twitch.tv recently announced that they were unilaterally removing hundreds of thousands of hours of Twitch VODs that they had been storing for free. Much like the recent catastrophic rise in RAM prices, this is mostly just a casualty of large language models demanding more and more data center space. Forgetting is becoming cheaper for these companies than remembering. How many hours of Twitch VODs and YouTube videos, how many images on Instagram will eventually become lost media? I am assigning a level of importance to a lot of stuff that is statistically just noise. And as these websites do wither and die, how many terabytes cataloging the dead will be lost? It's both a blessing and a curse that, barring a few notable exceptions, you don't really come back from the dead. Except we're not really letting people do that anymore either. It's mostly celebrities for now, and in some ways they might have it a bit worse as technology advances. You've probably seen a few times where deceased celebrities are wheeled out from the crypt and deep-faked into a movie. Peter Cushing was brought back in Rogue One, a Star Wars story. Bruce Lee was brought back for a Johnny Walker ad in China. The list goes on. Arthur C. Clarke was a futurist. You might have seen his more known work, 2001: A Space Odyssey. But he published a novel called Arthur C. Clarke's July 20th, 2019, Life in the 21st Century. He published this in 1969, and it was his thoughts on what would happen in 50 years' time. In this novel, he has a section entitled This Weekend in Entertainment, going over what's new in pop culture. Still Gone with the Wind. The sequel picks up several years after where the 80-year-old original left off, with Rhett and Scarlett reuniting in their middle age in 1880. Features the original cast of Clark Gable, Olivia de Havilland, and Vivian Leigh, and studio sets resurrected by computer graphic synthesis. Still Gone sets out to prove that they do make them like they used to. There are some cases where this technology has been used relatively interestingly. The 2020 documentary Welcome to Chechnya used it to obscure the identity of people interviewed so as to protect them from retaliation, rather than blurring out or pixelating their faces. That seems a little excessive, but it is an interesting use case for the technology. That being said, most of the use cases do seem to revolve around finishing performances posthumously. I've already mentioned Rogue One, but a more famous one is Carrie Fisher. Before The Rise of Skywalker began production in 2016, she passed away. Yes, they had permission from her estate, and yes, a lot of the footage was already shot, but they brought her back to life. Money and technology can now keep someone pseudo-alive longer than they should be. Not physically, but creatively alive. Why should I bother investing in a new pop star that I've scouted on TikTok when I can roll out ABBA through the power of AI, digitally de-age them, and in the prime of their life have them ready to gimme, gimme, gimme a man after midnight forever? We are seeing more and more instances of people being deepfaked into delivering messages and doing things that they would never have done themselves. And as we go further into the future, more and more of these messages will be delivered from beyond the grave. OpenAI and other AI companies are allowing their users to pump out thousands of hours of this video content. McAfee, the cybersecurity company that was founded by the guy that liked to have sex with whales, recently released a ranked deepfake list at the back end of 2025. It doesn't surprise me that the most popular music star in the world, Taylor Swift, is at top of the charts there as well, but Scarlett Johansson, Jenna Ortega, and Sydney Sweeney are all up there. 72% of Americans have seen fake celebrity or influencer endorsements, and 39% have clicked on one. It's not just endorsements. I've seen Mr. Rogers write a rap song with the hip-hop artist Tupac Shakur. I've seen Kobe Bryant flying a helicopter. I've seen John F. Kennedy on TikTok cracking jokes about the recent killing of Charlie Kirk. Part of this video would be missing if I didn't bring up the internet's reaction to his assassination in 2025. The internet has turned Charlie Kirk into an infinitely recurring meme. It's called Kirkification, and it's been flooding the internet. I know that Dennis Quaid said that the assassination created a million Charlie Kirks, but I don't think he meant that we'd see his face superimposed onto Adolf Hitler's body, or dancing in a conga line with Jeffrey Epstein. This isn't just memes and shitposters on Twitter. Evangelical megachurches, until they realized that it didn't really have the source, were playing AI-generated clips of Charlie Kirk asking the clergy to get up and join the fight. In fact, Kirkification is going so far that I think it's poisoning datasets of future AI models. I've recently seen a live-action Studio Ghibli AI video, except the witch looked like Charlie Kirk. He's just going to be a weird ghost echoing throughout the internet forever. Because like Terry Pratchett put it, a man is not dead while his name is still spoken. Terry Pratchett sadly passed away in March 2015. His last wish was for all of his unfinished works to be destroyed via steamroller. Lord Jericho proved that modern technology is no match for the might of the Industrial Revolution on August 29, 2017. Terry Pratchett, if his wishes are respected, is dead and is able to rest. But his name will be remembered forever. The phrase "New Terry Pratchett" has been embedded in the infrastructure of the internet as a tribute. In discussing how best to remember Terry, several fans came up with the idea to create a method of hiding new text in the code or headers of websites. The most prominent example is called xclax overhead, a non-standard HTTP header, which is essentially the real-world equivalent of the clax overhead. As long as these websites exist, there will be a little bit of Terry Pratchett flitting back and forth forever. This video was meant to get some thoughts and feelings out into a format that other people can understand. What's going to change going forward? I don't know. Should we care? What's worth preserving? Is everything worth preserving? At some point, will things get too expensive to keep maintaining? Surely Meta and Instagram won't be able to continue archiving this in 200 years' time. Right now, storing this data is cheap, but as we've seen with Twitch, some platforms will eventually stop offering massive storage for free. Some might go under. What happens then? Who decides what gets stored forever? Who decides what gets deleted? Will AI continue to grow and consume as it has? Or will we need a great reset because LLMs destroy the internet in a sadder version of the cyberpunk universe's data crash? Maybe we'll all be like Terry, remembered forever as our thoughts, feelings, opinions, and memories are broadcasted throughout the World Wide Web forever. Every post, a brick in your digital mausoleum. Every tweet you've made, that Steam review for a game you played once in 2017. Your name echoing through the network long after you're gone. So maybe make those posts count. Thank you for watching. If you can, I would appreciate if you checked out my music on SoundCloud. And if you'd like, my Patreon is in the description as well. I would appreciate a couple extra bucks. It was Grandad who spoke next, after a long pause broken only by the squeaking of the new shutter bars. When he did speak, it was as if something was on his mind. "We keep that name moving in the overhead," he said, and it seemed to Princess that the wind in the shutter arrays around her blew more forlornly, and the everlasting clicking of the shutters grew more urgent. He'd never have wanted to go home. He was a real linesman. His name is in the code, in the wind, in the rigging and the shutters. Haven't you ever heard the saying, "Man's not dead while his name's still spoken"?